My name is Rhapsody and welcome back to Disco Elysium. Alright, we've got a little bit more to learn about the world.
What can I help you with?
I got some questions about reality. Legendary Esprit de Corps, not getting anything extra on that. Alright, what times are these? These are unimportant times, detective. She puts her finger to her lips, then points at you. You and I were born after the dust had settled, 1,000th of a second too late. Too late for what? For the big time. Her eyes light up. There's a flash of teeth. What's the big time? The revolution, she says. What is this revolution I keep hearing about? It's quite easy. Every 100 years or so, our species gets together to decide what's next. Who gets shot in the head and who gets mineral rights. It's a real kerfuffle. Well, who got shot in the head? Those would be the communists. Generally speaking, 40 million people got shot in the head during the World Revolution. But the communists, they all got shot in the head. She's not gloating. It's a relieved celebration. Oh, and the anarchists too. Oh, God. I'm dead twice over. They shot them as well. Well, so well, one forgets they even existed. Did the communists and anarchists shoot back? Did they ever? Before they got shot themselves, they shot 2 million people. Truly a kerfuffle? That's a tragedy. It sounds like they should have shot more people in the head then. That's a tragedy. Yes. The Red Deluge, they call it. The Insulindian Deluge. I had a deluge too. In my head. Point to your little head. Hang on. I don't know what you're implying for there. Anyone else get shot in the head on the opposing side? Oh, lots of people. Even a king got shot in the head or thrown beneath a horse or drowned. Accounts differ. It was unceremonious. She shakes her head. Just as well, he wasn't actually the king, just the king's nephew. The real king abdicated and lived out a long and productive life as a venture capitalist in Grad. Cowardly king or smart king? Well, I mean, like, if it was just like as a farmer, I'd be like, yeah, clever, yeah. But you're trading your form of political power there for an economic power. It's similarly hierarchical and destructive. Cowardly king. I'd prefer the term risk-averse. King Guillaume was nobody's fool. He could smell a PR disaster brewing. So he got out alive and his nephew Frizzell got shot in his place. Him and tens of thousands of his wonderfully fascist kingsmen. It was a wild time. I was just mention a little late that the other side was literal fascists. Cool. Who got the mineral rights? The liberals got the mineral rights. She looks up at the sky, the inland, the crumbling city. And by mineral rights, I mean everything. Oh, and by liberals, you mean liberals are usually middle-class people, detective. Of the remaining gentry, the beneficiaries of the pre-revolutionary arrangements. Some were rich enough to stay in the Constitution, stay with the Constitution, with monarchy. Big mistake. Others bet on the revolution. They were called the ultras, or ultra-liberals. They fared well. How did the liberals win it all? They didn't win so much as survive. We were the last ones standing when the war ended. Everyone else got shot in the head, remember? Well, she's one of them. Of course. That said we. Ooh, Harry, sorry, it's Harry. Harry Dubois. Guess we know where we were. If everyone got shot, who was there to surrender to? To foreign intervention, the coalition. Those people really took the mineral rights. Wait, you just said the liberals already took everything. The liberals took everything that wasn't nailed to the ground. The coalition took the ground. She stomps her rubber-booted foot. The ocean, the laws, and the people. Who are the coalition? The coalition of nations, Grad, Mesk, Vespa, Messina, Oranje, and Sieur-le-Clef, the armed center of the world. They landed here and ended the revolution. It was the moralist thing to do. There's a bitterness in her voice, tempered with understanding. She's critical, but ultimately understands the cause. Moralist? The moralists believe in keeping everything exactly the way it is. They believe in mineral rights and not shooting people in the head. They're not the same, at least not in the same manner and volume as the others do. They're long-standing provisional rulers of Revachol, their coalition government. This is their zone of control. They embolden the RCM with crumbs of the same law they took. Technically speaking, you are a moralist. The color of moralism is blue. The official motto of the Moral Intern, or Moralists International, is a blue forget-me-not, a piece of the grey sky. Unofficial, for a moment, there was hope. Not just technically, practically, for a moment there was hope. If always picking the option that doesn't commit to anything, then hell yes, I am. Wait. Technically, you're a moralist. If always picking the option that doesn't commit to anything, then hell yes, I am, and also not, of course. I don't think I'm a moralist, man. Of course, she sizes you up. Not easy to be moderate about head shooting in your line of work. When was this kerfuffle? The turn of the century revolution? She smiles mischievously. Don't answer it. It's a trick question. The revolution began in 02 on the Grad Isla, so 49 years past. Though by the end, nearly the whole world had got involved. Who started it? It wasn't a who, but a what. A pandemic of Sarath, a particularly virulent prion disease, which the authorities in Grad proved unable to contain. Then, Mazov came along and overthrew the government. What did the Sarath do? It made people overthrow their governments. Wow, really? Of course not. It was a highly infectious microorganism that destroyed brain tissue. The actual causes of the revolution were material. The pandemic only provided the spark. Where did it spread from there? From Revachol and Grad? Not far. The world managed to cauterize itself. Mazov's government was overthrown in 08 by the coalition, and the coalition crushed the Revachol commune 2 years later. It was the end. What came next? Why, you and I, officer. She waves her arms, raincoat flapping in the wind. Our lives in the zone of control. Something tells you that her life and yours are not that similar. Maybe it's because she has a boat and you have that necktie. A pair of pants. Our lives are very different from one another. No doubt. But we share the same time and position on the planet's crust. That counts for more than you'd think. What is the zone of control? A city-state divided into free market zones under the everlasting interregnum. Not familiar with the word. Under the everlasting interregnum of the coalition of nations. And you, of course, the citizens' militia. The clatter of a typewriter keys fills the main hall of the reappropriated silk mill, Precinct 41. Chad Tilbrook presses enter. Outside, Officer Elfboy Williams, that's probably going to be corrected in the next one if I have to guess, slams the door of an armored motor carriage. Never mind, we're not actually going to see the conversation there. The zone of control is the third incarceration Revachol. Zone of control is the third incarceration Revachol. Oh, we're third incarnation Revachol, excuse me. After the failure of the suzerain in the commune. What happened to the rest of the world? Modernity. They developed the marvels of inter-isolary communication, telematic milieus, radiation, colored plastics. Meanwhile, in Revachol West, the aftermath continues for the 5th decade. 51 minus 8 equals 43. Hang on, you're saying it's been like this for 43 years? Time flies. What have we been doing all that time? The 20s saw a decade of urban war. West of the river leveled, offshore platforms in flames. Still, it's regarded as an improvement on what came before. 08 to 19 was simply hell. And after that? The 30s. Things settled down in the 30s. Revachol East transformed itself into the world's largest tax haven, with the international community's blessing. For the first time in a long time, it seemed like things were going somewhere. Were they? No. It was a market mirage fueled by cocaine and quantitative easing. Feeling familiar. The 40s dispelled it like a cold splash. An isola-wide hangover, you might say. And here we are, she curtsies. Welcome to reality, baby. From the looks of it, the 50s haven't been much better for the zone of control. You can see it in her eyes. Days slipping away. You don't seem to be thrilled. I've no right to be dissatisfied, she shakes her head. This shirt is Barbara Muscova. The raincoat is impervious to rain and guaranteed for 100 years. My daughters will wear it. No, it's just... That's interesting. That's like a side reference to generational wealth there. She looks at the crumbling tenements, paint flecking from the stone. Her voice is almost wistful. We could have had so much more. Every one of us. If we'd played it right. What would you have done differently? Good question. She cranes her neck. What would you have done differently? I asked you, who you were in all of this? I would have sought a medical solution. Sounds like Sarath drove those people's mad. No, Sarath would have caused, like, it would have inflamed already extant tensions. You know, limited supply of medicine to certain areas, kind of like making it clear what hierarchical structure meant for those at the top and how willing they were to let the poor die. The food becomes a huge issue in those kinds of scenarios as well. I would have killed more 40 million people if that's what it took. No, I would have made it up with the mineral rights. No. I would have sought a medical solution. Sounds like the Sarath drove those people mad. No. I'm gonna ask her. I asked you. Who are you in all of this? And I asked you, part less detective of the Citizens Militia. What insight has acute encephalopathy given you? So the first one is about maintaining a status quo. Because as I was saying, like, Sarath would have inflamed the tensions that already existed. There clearly was clearly the structure wasn't working at the time. It just hastened the end. So I worry that I would have sought a medical solution. Sounds like the Sarath drove those people mad is effectively my character prescribing to the ultra liberal, the moralist kind of standpoint, the status quo, effectively. The problem is it's contrasted against these two. I would have killed more, 40 million if that, 400 billion if that would have taken. No. No. It's difficult when you scale these things up, because you have to balance, like, is a peaceful revolution possible? What is the most damage limited revolution? And then, is it worth having a revolution if so many people die? Or is it even moral? And of course, like, is the stability of the government that you seek to install, or lacking government, the system that you seek to install, is that going to prevent more deaths than have been reached in achieving it? Or is it even going to last long enough to do the good that it would need to do to outweigh the blood of the revolution? I can't stand behind the line of killing more at all. So the 40. Also, it doesn't clarify what side I would have killed for, right? Because there were 40 million that the fascists killed, and then there were 2 million that the communists killed. I'm assuming I would have killed more, 400 million if that's what it took. Is like 40, I would have done 400. I think it's actually the supporting of the fascist position. Let's have a look to see if we can actually pass that with the... Previous sentences. No, we actually haven't got like enough of the information still. Hey, hang on. I might be able to keep going up. No, I can, but I can't actually see things up there. Okay, fair enough. And then I would have made off with the middle rights. No. Extremely. Not into that whole whole non-public ownership kind of sitch. At least of, you know, things that are obviously public. I'm gonna say I don't know, literally just because I do not feel comfortable with any of the other options. Then you would have died, most likely. Not far from here, maybe even right here, during the benchhead, defending the coast the day the coalition took the city. I wouldn't have fought with the communards. Not that. Probably or happily. Ooh. So happily has two different implications here. There's dying for a cause. And then there's, yeah, I'd be totally fine with just not existing. And I don't know which my character is implying here. Probably. I'll say probably. No, almost certainly. The commune would have forced you. Such was the fate of the undecided. That's enough about the times. They are what they are, who knows? An afterbloom may yet come. Anyway, enough sentimentality. Is there anything else you wanted to know? Whoa, not so fast. Who is she in all of this? Ask her who she is. She owes you an answer. I want to know what you are. She hums. She won't maneuver herself out of this one. What are you? I'm the vilest of the vile, she says with a sudden flash of teeth. A traitor, devourer of nations and infants. I am an ultra. Dios mío! Draw across, a liberal! I don't need to ask what's an ultra. I already asked about that. Dios mío, a liberal. Yes, she nods slowly. I am the nether creature of the forbidden swamp. I pushed the king under a shit wagon and betrayed the revolution. My kind surrendered the nation to financial colonists. Perhaps you'd thought we'd gone extinct. After all, no sane person identifies as an ultra anymore. Not in broad daylight. She looks into your eye. Tell me, now that I've uncoiled myself, are you repulsed? In her green eyes, you see a mixture of truth and self-satire. Decades of guilt and pride. Suggestion says forgive her. Electrochemistry, but only because you like pearlescent teeth and those light green eyes. I don't know about her deeds. I know that she's using flowery language here to discuss what actually happened. I'm the nether creature of the forbidden swamp. I pushed the king under a shit wagon and betrayed the revolution. My kind surrendered the nation to financial colonists. Are they poking at are they poking at the was it Umberto Eco in Eurofascism making the point that liberals, when push comes to shove, liberals side with fascists over communists? I mean, but this is like a hyper corporatist fascism, if at all. Like the kind of like key markers of fascism don't necessarily obviously exist in her description of financial colonists. But of course they necessarily wouldn't, considering flowery language, and we're not talking about the exact policies or... I mean, like, the current world seems to be hyper-capitalist utopia in some areas, absolute drawn-out slug for the right to exist in others. And then that brings in another point. How do you forgive someone? And why should you forgive someone? Do you forgive someone for showing contrition? Do you forgive someone just as a function of your interactions with them? Do you forgive someone for being amiable? I mean, it's drawing the point between those two. Can you forgive someone? What does forgiveness mean here? I love this conversation. I don't know where to go with it. Tell me, now that I've uncoiled myself, are you repulsed? I should have asked earlier about the ultras. Like, in this conversational line, I should have asked about the ultras. The problem is electrochemistry is actually like, it's like our ability to handle drugs, but it's also our sexual drive and stuff like that in this game. So I am worried that like electrochemistry is making that suggestion literally just because pretty girl. This implies contrition. I am a nether creature of the Forbidden Swamp. I did like the phrasing of it as negative. The vilest of the vile. But it could be, as it says, it could be just like, yeah, a mixture of truth and self-satire. What part of it is self-satire? What part of it is truth? Is she, like, does she actually feel guilt over it, but is, how would you say, is being hyperbolic? Or exaggerating it for the sake of flair? And also, what does it say about me if I can't forgive? But can you forgive a revolution that ended up killing 40 million people? It's like the revolution, the communards, the commune, Marsov's group, whatever you want to call them, right? Killed 2 million people to get into power, and then 40 million were killed in response. Right? Now, obviously, you can't just go, yeah, like, oh, statistic, it's, 2 is larger than 40, right? Because what they're fighting for does matter. Otherwise, like, oh, you know, I can't think of, like, a real-world example, but imagine, like, I can't think of a real-world example. I can't give numbers to a real-world example. But, like, imagine an ultra-fascist regime that is fought or rather fights an anti-fascist communist regime. And the numbers being heavily skewed in either direction, but in either direction. I mean, the numbers, like, to make the point that I'm trying to make, would be the numbers skewed heavily in terms of fascist kills. The pure balance of the number doesn't imply the morality of them. The problem is when you are talking about killing, it's so finite. It's a function of, you know, messy, bloody revolutions. But you can't depersonalize those numbers. Otherwise, it's much easier to make immoral decisions, just looking at people as statistics to be thrown away. I know this is not the example with which we are dealing, but imagine, could you forgive a member of the SS? How about the Hitler Youth? How about a guard? How about another soldier in a different country in the Axis? This is... I've spent 10 minutes on this decision and I still don't know. I actually think the thing I'm closest to is I forgive you, but only because you're charming. It implies the thing that I'm trying to go with here, which is that I do associate your actions with guilt, but that forgiveness is possible. But also, it makes sure that... It doesn't make sure. It states it in a way that doesn't excuse anything. It's effectively just saying, like, I can be personable with you, but I don't really forgive you with those things. Like, I forgive you socially, but I can't forgive those actions, kind of situation. Adieu, she pronounces, who being of great charm and guile, sneaketh into the homes of the godly. Vile Dieu. Shake your head slowly. I hope we're able to continue as friends despite my scaly bulk and the treacheries committed by my people against the suzerain and the commune. See, that's what I wanted to ask about the Ultra. I hope I get another chance to go through this conversation. The reason is, I think she will clarify if I ask what is an Ultra in this line, that they were a group, this is what I suspect, that they were a group who instigated the revolution, used the, obviously, Tinder and Flame, used the Tinder and air and heat, and effectively created the Flame, started the revolution, or bolstered, at the absolute least, in order to come out on top. Right, a kind of opportunistic move. When the dust settled, the Liberals weren't the only ones to clean up the mess. By virtue of their survival, they were handed enormous power to shape the future. She turns her gaze to the Delta. This was all our last generation managed. What would you have done? Would you have done something differently? With due respect to our overlords, the eternal caretaker government that keeps Martinez a monument to the efficacy of its artillery, I would not have relinquished sovereignty to the coalition. Not here in Martinez, not in Stella Marie or Delta's beachheads either. If not for my own sake, and for my daughter's. We had an obligation to defend our sovereignty. We should have burned the whole Isola down rather than let them have it. Dark orange flames reflect in her green eyes, an oil fire on the ocean. You're a patriot? You have daughters? You're a smart woman. It's difficult, because, like, who are you ceding your sovereignty to? The thing is, we live, 43 years in the future, so we can see that the sovereignty of this city being given up, or the sovereignty of this whole... was it Lake Caillou in general, or is it just, like, Revachol, Jamrock, etc.? Because it does seem like this area broadly is suffering. You're a smart woman. Perhaps. Her earrings chime as she nods. My intellectual vanity will be my undoing. You're no dummy yourself. No, or intellectual vanity will be my undoing. And the crown on your head as you lay in your casket. You're a patriot? I suppose I am. I wouldn't be a patriot anywhere but here. Seditious talk, ma'am. Kim puts down his notes to give her a look. You have daughters? Yes. Whatever else I am, I'm also a wife and a mother. She closes her eyes and opens them again. Now, shall we return to reality? What is acute encephalopathy? It's a neurological disorder caused by a lack of vitamin B in your brain. Symptoms include retrograde amnesia. It's quite serious. You should get yourself checked out. She conveys it in short, cold bursts, trying not to invest too deeply into the condition of this doomed detective. In case he goes down later, souring the entire portfolio. What causes encephalopathy, eh? Heavy alcoholism? I know you got a lot riding on me, I won't let you down. No, what causes encephalopathy? Well, it's either bariatric surgery or long-term alcohol use. It's definitely the drinking. She nods slowly. Yes, and perform autoerotic asphyxiation on yourself with your funny necktie out the open somewhere. I hate that necktie. I need to take it off. What is this? Spread your hands. A bird? She tilts her head. A smanakid. A flightless bird of the polar regions? Keep guessing. Some sort of a krill hunter. No, wait. Joyce raises her eyebrows. You're an ancient ruin, a symbol of hubris and decay, half submerged in some salty sea. What, really? Of course you're not, my dear. I'm just terrible at guessing games. I mean, what is this place here? Ah! She spreads her arms open almost as wide. This is the pier of Rue de Saint-Ghislain, 33A, where the tenants have been kind enough to rent me a slot. Or two. She looks around. Where is Rue de Saint-Ghislain, 33A? What is, rather, a pre-revolutionary tenement. Old buildings are called tenements, you see, and newer buildings, battlements, after les bâtiments nouveaux. Nouveau? I don't know how to pronounce that. I know it's new. Nouveau. There we go. Les bâtiments nouveaux. But 33A and 33B are not nouveau. They're old. She looks up at the crumbling facade. This one used to be 8 to 10 stories tall, a real high-rise with the standards of the last century. Built to mirror the skyscrapers across the bay and the delta. That was before the war, of course. Who lived in them? Mostly the urban middle class, I believe. This was once primo real estate, before the cannons lopped 4 or 5 stories off. Splat, splat. From the dilapidated balcony, a young girl in odd clothes gives Joyce the evil eye, a red paintbrush held to her throat. You could be wrong, but it appears as if she's running the brush across her throat in a sawing motion. I need to go and talk to Cindy after this. Wonderful. What is that? Point to Cindy the skull. The girl in the old lady rags? Yes. Looks like a sullen and rebellious member of the teen infraculture. Infraculture? Yes. You and I belong to the supraculture. We're common, the herd. The music on the radio, the food on the chain restaurant. Those all too popular for the girl in the old lady rags. We'd say subculture, in broader terms. She prefers a fantasy world, an infraculture with its own dress code and vernacular. It's an illusion, I'm afraid. There's no refuge from the supraculture. Okay, now explain the same thing, but to a child. Young people who dye their hair funny colors and wear old people's clothes are stupid, and their little rebellion is self-defeating. I disagree. As, to be fair, I have a vested disagreement in that, because I am not really, like, I've had dyed hair. I wear kind of clothes of like a little bit of a slightly different generation to my own. I wouldn't say I'm like all hipster, but I'm definitely close. I'm gonna try esprit de corps because anytime, like, but I'm not gonna raise my esprit de corps later. So I may not be able to... No, but hang on. That's all for now. That's all for now. I'm gonna pop some clothes on that will help me with my esprit de corps, because I think I have, like, a lot of them. I think I, in fact, have a couple things on at the moment that are lowering my esprit de... Nah, hang on. The other one also has esprit de corps, doesn't it? Yeah, it's esprit de corps and shivers. The binder is not lowering... It's lowering my authority, but not my esprit de corps. Savoir-faire, savoir-faire. Actually, no, I don't have any way to raise my esprit de corps here. Huh. Alright, I'm gonna try it then. After I think a thought. Thought complete. White morning. And the little guy gets smaller and smaller as you rise above the dollhouse world. You see him out in the snow, on the streets, in the shop on the corner, and finally, in a matchbox house. Sitting by the window, white flowers on the windowsill. You can smell them from up here. It's awful. A white morning. A modern death. Divorce, or something similar. All you can do is put more distance between you and him. Make him smaller. Make him less... you. I like that a lot. Like, obviously the internal thought there is about putting distance between yourself and your grief. But the fact that it is plus 20% to zoom out distance, and it's talking about all you can do is put more distance between you and him, make him smaller, make him less you, I think is talking about the way you're empathizing with the player character, and that empathy, especially in this story with a lot of dark twists and turns, is something that can harm you. It can not like strongly, but like that your empathy to this character, and especially if you relate to the grief or any of the other kinds of things that our character has displayed, are a white morning, a modern death. And that all you can do is put more distance between you and him. To sever that emotional tether. And it's represented mechanically by zooming out. I like it. And obviously, and the little guy gets smaller and smaller as you rise above the dollhouse world is obviously also very, very similar reference. I like that a lot. I may end up just forgetting that memory, but I like it. I like it. Very good.
You're back. Good. What can I help you with? Not an umbrella, I hope. I don't need one myself, you see.
Neither do I. Pat your coat. Similarly wet cloak. Very rugged. She nods in approval. Good choice. Now, I suspect you had questions. Nothing like talking to pass a rainy day, am I right? I think, actually, what I'm going to want to do here... Yeah, none of those are ready to level up. I think, considering we're almost at 40 minutes, and I think either of those might start a long conversation, considering, you know, we've had 1.5 episodes of conversation exclusively with this character. I'm going to end the episode and then start the next with actually telling her the updates on the things she's been asking for. So for the moment, my name has been Rhapsody. The name of the game has been Disco Elysium. Hopefully you've been enjoying yourselves, and hopefully we'll see you next time.